Hey everyone, and welcome to yet another knife overview here at The Last of Knives. So today we are checking out the CRKT CEO. We'll be going over some of the specs and features and some of my quick thoughts about the knife as well. So let's get right into it. So let's start off by taking a quick look at the basics first. The CRKT CEO is actually available in quite a few more variants now than what you might be aware of. This one in particular is a yellow GRN scales with a bamboo design, which costs about 40 American dollars or 50 Canadian. They have actually released a flipper version which I believe is only in black GRN, but the other versions with thumb studs include black GRN handles, white micarta exclusively from Blade HQ, a burgundy micarta version, and even blue linen micarta scales with S35 VN blade steel. All of these variants have blade steels either of 8CR13 MOV, T2, or even S35 VN. It has a blade steel of 8CR13 MOV, finished off with a black stonewash finish, and it has a flat grind. 8CR13 MOV is obviously not the greatest steel out there, but it is decent for what you pay for. So one of the biggest unfortunate features about this knife would be the pocket clip and the ambidextrousness. It can only be carried tip down with only right hand configuration. However, it is a deep carry and the screws are flushed, which is a good thing if you don't want to fight your pants when you're taking this out of your pocket. Definitely not a very ambidextrous knife though. You also have one thumb stud, which is also only on the right hand side. However, if I do remember properly, you can reverse it since there is a screw on the other side to remove or swap the thumb stud arrangement. Regarding dimensions, the CRKT CEO has a blade length of 3.11 inches, a closed length of 4.45 inches, and an overall length of 7.63 inches, so unexpectedly not a tiny knife at all in terms of overall length, but also not a very heavy knife too. It weighs in only at 2.1 ounces, so you're not going to feel anything too noticeable in the pocket. Additionally, you're looking at a handle with a thickness of 0.42 inches and a blade thickness of 0.08 of an inch. Although the handle gives plenty of room for your fingers, the ergonomics are obviously not going to be the best because of its design mainly for use in the office or as a gentleman's knife. Because of those reasons, the ergonomics aren't anything too important regarding its way of use, because you're not going to need to hold this type of knife for hours if you're not using it for heavy work, which you obviously wouldn't want to do. With that extreme slim design, it's going to be practically carried like a pen, so you can easily fit this in your shirt pocket or any deep pocket really. And despite being tip down only, the deep carry clip allows it to ride deeply, and it's pretty discreet and unnoticeable when it's carried because of that very minimalist and slim design. Despite a few setbacks on the knife, one feature I appreciate is the silky smooth action. It runs on ball bearings, so you're gonna get that really smooth and quick deployment from the thumb stud, and unfortunately there's only one thumb stud which favors more of right-handed people, which again is a pretty big letdown for you lefties. In terms of disengaging the lock, it would be more beneficial to people with smaller thumbs to unlock the liner locking mechanism, as since you don't have a large cutout here, meaning it's gonna be pretty difficult for your finger to get in there. As far as aesthetics go, honestly I don't like the scales as equally as those other variants of the CEO with a more elegant and subtle look to them, such as the burgundy micarta scales, black scales, etc. But I do find the shape and slenderness to be really appealing. So now let's give it a TLOK rating. And starting off with the ergonomics, I know the CEO is mostly meant for office use, so the ergonomics aren't really crucial, but despite that I'll give it a 2 in ergonomics. As for the blade, with a blade steel of 8CR13 MOV, you can't really expect too much great out of this, so I'll give it a 3 out of 10 in terms of blade. For pocket rideability, although it is tip down only, it does carry nice in your pocket as I mentioned because of that slender design and its deep carry pocket clip. It also has flush screws, so your pants or shirt pocket will not get caught, which is a nice thing, so it gets a 7 out of 10 in pocket rideability. For practicality, because it's meant for really light office use like cutting soft objects like paper, but not really anything harder, it gets a 5 out of 10 in practicality. As far as quality goes, this particular model CRKT CEO has pretty cheap filling material like GRN scales and the blade steel of 8CR13 MOV, so it earns a 4 out of 10 in quality. In terms of fidget friendliness, this knife gives you butter smooth action and fast deployment, but like I mentioned, the locking mechanism isn't something you would want to fidget with, especially because it's pretty difficult to disengage. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10 in fidget friendliness. For action, it gets a higher score of 8 out of 10 because if we disregard the difficulty of disengaging the lock, at the end of the day the action is honestly really good. The fit and finish on this knife is okay. There is a tiny bit of blade play, but you can get rid of that by tightening the pivot if you're willing to sacrifice a drop shot action. I can't guarantee this on all of your CEOs since they can all differ. Furthermore, if you take a very close look at this small sharpening choil here, you can see the cutting edge wasn't really sharpened properly, as there does appear to be a little curve here. Because of those reasons, the fit and finish gets a 4 out of 10. Honestly, I don't really think this particular model is worth the money you pay for, especially because of the many letdowns, so I'll give it a 3 out of 10 in value. In terms of aesthetics, I really do like the slender aspect and that office vibe it gives, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10 in looks. Lastly, as far as dimensions like its length, thickness, weight, etc., the size is one of the few positive things I have for the knife. It's very light, which was 2.2 ounces, so it's not going to pull down on your pants, and the length is appropriate in my opinion for the type of use, so I'll give it a 7 in dimensions. If we add all those scores up, we get a final and total score of 53 out of 100, which is not the highest score I've given to a knife. However, the knife isn't as bad as many people say. I mean, there are many major gripes, at least for this bamboo version I have here, but for 40 bucks I don't really see those as a big deal. As mentioned, I wouldn't recommend this particular model since, like I said, bad steel, okay fit and finish, etc. But I think I could recommend the flipper model if you dig a more ambidextrous way of deployment. Or the models with better blade steel like D2 or S35VN, or even a different handle material if you want a less obvious color when you carry it. So basically, those are all my thoughts I have on the CRKT CEO. Now, what are your thoughts on the CRKT CEO? Would you get your hands on this version or another version with D2 steel or maybe a flipper? Let me know in the comments below. Also, consider hitting that subscribe button, like button, and also that notification bell if you hadn't already, so you know when the next EDC gear or folding knife review is up. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.